the Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network presents Worldview Media Podcast, where Gordon and Joyce Runyon view popular media through the lens of the biblical five-point covenant model to help believers appreciate and apply principles of exciting narrative and engaging storytelling.
Coming to you live from a very expensive freezer filled with ice cream. Just chocolate and vanilla. It's the Worldview Media Podcast.
Woo! Chocolate and vanilla.
I am your host. They're back to calling me Big Shooter.
I guess that's better than Big Tutor.
What? Yeah, I think so.
You know, like a house. A big Tudor house.
Oh, Tudor.
Sure.
Right, I'm more a traditional Gothic.
Sure.
And with me is a crazy woman named Joyce.
Hello.
This is the Worldview Media Podcast, the most frivolous podcast of the Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network. Your one-stop shop
I knew you were going to
for
do
all
it.
your dominionizing needs.
I was waiting for it. And you didn't disappoint.
All right, I hit all the right notes. Trying to think if there was something else I should say. Shout out to Jordan.
Hey, Jordan.
Okay, so we are talking about the docudrama available on Netflix called The Founder.
The Founder.
Starring Michael Keaton and Rob Swanson. Ron Swanson.
That's not really who it is.
That's the character's name.
Yes.
Okay, so what we have in The Founder, we have a dramatized...
Based on a true story.
Yeah. It's kind of a docudrama where they're dramatizing the real-life history of Ray Kroc and his building of the McDonald's empire.
Yeah.
What'd you think overall of this show?
It was a shocking movie.
Really? In what way?
Well, for one, I really thought it was a documentary, which it wasn't. It was billed wrong on Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix listed it as a documentary.
That's and then just the story, the whole story of who really started it, who took it over, how it went. It was just very shocking.
What do you mean? Shocking how? In what way?
Well, I had never really heard the background of it and how things transpired and who started it and,
Are you saying that the person of Ray Kroc himself was surprising to you?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Well, as we were finishing up watching it, coming to the end, it occurred to me that his character, and I don't know how true it is, I know it's based on a true story, but just going off what the movie says, I thought the character of Ray Kroc was very much like the lead guy in There Will Be Blood, the Daniel Day-Lewis movie that we looked at some months ago.
Had the pleasure of watching.
Right. And very similar in the sense that the first time we run into them, we see them experiencing failure in their efforts to be entrepreneurs. Crushing failure, you might even call it. Ray Kroc was being more slowly crushed by it. But we see both those characters experiencing failure and then immediately kind of getting back on the horse and doing what it takes to move forward. And
pulling themselves up and persevering.
Right, and that was the watchword for this movie, was perseverance and persistence. Is that what it was? Persistence.
Maybe so.
And in both of those movies, that opening scene and their persistence in overcoming failure was an attractive thing, and it made me sympathetic toward those characters and want to see them succeed. But then once they succeeded, they both kind of became well, just horrible people.
Yeah.
And probably they didn't just become that. It's just that their success and their affluence
allowed them
to be horrible people where they couldn't afford it before. And I'm with you. That was kind of surprising to me. So, did you like the movie, or?
Will I watch it again? No.
Right.
Was it a complete waste of my time? No.
Right.
I think it was done well. The actors were pretty decent. You know, I think with the scenes and the settings,
production was good.
I mean,
That's
it seemed pretty true to the time era, and
right.
So it did have some good things about it.
Yeah.
But it's not a favorite.
Right. Well, let's run through the story real fast. So we find Ray Kroc. He's a traveling salesman, and apparently, you know, what does he sell? Well, eventually we find out he kind of sells whatever he can get his hands on to sell.
Gadget is, yeah.
Yeah.
I think is really how that kind
of. Yeah, he seems to be a sucker for gadgets and innovation, and that's what he's trying to sell. And so he's trying to sell this newfangled milkshake mixer, and this is back in the 40s or 50s, and he's selling them to drive-in. What would you call those?
A drive-in.
Just a drive-in. A drive-in food place.
As opposed to a drive-in supermarket.
Well, there are drive-in theaters. There are drive-in liquor stores, or there were.
I don't think those are in existence anymore.
Right. And so, selling these milkshake things, he runs into the McDonald brothers, who have one store in California, in Southern California, and they order a whole bunch of his milkshake mixers.
Of these machines.
He
can't even sell one.
Right, he can't sell one to save his life, and they place an order.
8. They make 6 or 8 milkshakes at a time.
Yeah, and so they order 6 of these things, and he can't sell one, and he calls them to make sure the order is right. And in the middle of the call, they change their order to 8 instead of 6.
2 more, yeah.
And so he drives across the country to see what's going on and what they're doing, and then we meet the McDonald brothers, and these are 2 guys who own this burger place that they just call McDonald's, and the big thing, he kind of gets his way in with them. They give him a tour and they explain what they're doing, and you know, they've got lines out to the corner of the street, and they're very busy, very successful. And the big thing that they have done is they've figured out how to really radically change what it means to get fast food, or they may have invented the concept.
I think they invented fast food.
So 30 seconds from the time you order your burger and fries till the moment it's in the sack and in your hand. And you know, such a thing had never been done before, and there were obvious hurdles and obstacles that they had to overcome. And we learn about the Kroc brothers that if a thing didn't exist, the McDonald brothers. What we learn about them is that if they needed an item for their newfangled speedy kitchen and that item didn't exist, they just made it themselves. Yeah. And so they're very creative, they're very innovative, they're big problem solvers, and Ray Kroc is blown away. He's impressed, and he talks them into letting him invest and become a partner, and he's going to sell franchises. They're going to franchise McDonald's. And he wants to see it kind of take over the United States. And so then the bulk of the story is just him dealing with unexpected problems of what it means to sell a franchise, and before there were such things. And I was just thinking today that probably our experience with restaurants and what we know to just be normal, it wasn't normal at all before the McDonald's brothers did what they did, and then Ray Kroc came and did what he did. Because we're just used to being in a different city we've never been in and seeing a familiar sign of a restaurant.
Yeah.
And knowing before you go in there what's going to be on the menu, and knowing what that's going to taste like when you order that. And that was unheard of before McDonald's. And now it's everywhere. The uniform menus, not just the uniform menus, but the exact same flavor of everything. Everything tastes the same and is done the exact same way in all these different franchises. And I was thinking, that's even true of a place like the Olive Garden.
Yeah. It's not just fast food.
Right, it's not just fast food, but that model of
that
uniformity is everywhere. And we just kind of take it for granted now, I think. So it was interesting seeing the struggle to bring that about and how it obviously became the way to do it, and that was a pretty big deal. And then we see Ray Kroc experience success as he overcomes issues, and it kind of winds up destroying whatever family life he had. We may talk about that a little bit later. And the movie kind of ends with him at the height of his powers. He's going to go hobnob with newly elected President Reagan or something, and that's really just kind of how it ends. Him at the height of his fame and glory, and still basically the same guy he was when he started. There were a couple of storytelling issues that I had with it, though. One of them, I don't know if you noticed, but I noticed that Ray Kroc was just drinking like a fish through the whole movie. You know, he's never far away from a bottle of whiskey, and so many scenes just focused on him pouring himself a glass of whiskey and then doing whatever else he's going to do, or talking or whatever. And it just seemed to me like they were setting us up for something, you know. He either DUI or, you know, that his alcohol stuff was going to wind up causing him to fail in this or that, and there just never was a payoff with that. So they spend all this time focusing on how much he's drinking and how often, and it just goes nowhere. It's not an issue, or it doesn't do anything. And I just thought that was a weird storytelling thing. Why focus on it like that if you're not?
Well, I don't know if it's that maybe just was how he did things, you know, like people take a bottle of water to work, you know, he took something else.
Right.
But so that may just be part of his character that they're showing. Maybe that talks about his self-indulgence, or how he felt he was entitled to do whatever he wanted to, whenever he wanted to.
Well, could it also be, just as you say that, it makes me wonder if it's also maybe to heighten, I almost felt like it was thematic, that here's Ray Kroc trying to build this family-friendly brand of restaurant. And behind the scenes, he's not a family-friendly kind of guy. You know? Is that just to kind of heighten that perception? Or?
Well, that could be. And I also think, you know, we really don't see him drinking as much in the beginning, and maybe that's just because he is out driving and doing things as opposed to when he's in his office and he's not having to be out and about.
Maybe.
And so, but I still think it's a reflection of his character. You know, that's just how the guy was, and must have been like that for them to include that in the movie. And I think drinking was it was a hobby for a lot of people back in that time, you know.
And smoking.
That's what they did. They smoked and they drank, and that was just part of their daily routine.
Yeah, that may be. All right. Well, I have to confess, I think I liked it more than I thought I would. I understand you can't, if you're doing a documentary sort of thing, you can't make up a story that isn't there. You have to go with it. Right. I just felt like there's a reason why we tell stories the way we do, where issues get resolved in the end, and good guys get rewarded for being good guys, and bad guys kind of get what's coming to them. And there's a reason we tell those stories. And then when you experience a story like that, where none of that happens, it's a little bit jarring, I think. Not that it isn't realistic, but it's a little bit jarring when you.
Well, I think as you say that makes it sound that some people get away with doing bad things, and ultimately, nobody gets away
they don't.
with anything.
Right. Ultimately, they.
And
don't.
I think that's part of the problem with the perception of our society is that, well, look at all these terrible people that do all these terrible things, and there is no judgment for them. But there is.
Yeah.
And you can't be looking at somebody else's situation and saying, why aren't they getting something more deserving of their actions than I am getting of what, here I am trying, doing my best, and, my life is terrible.
Yeah, you're talking about Psalm 73
and,
there.
Your focus really shouldn't ever be on anybody other than Christ.
Sure.
And if you're looking, some of us have terrible bosses, some of us have terrible people that we have to work with, and God sees and knows all, and there is a time of judgment. Yeah. Period.
Yeah, nobody's getting away with anything. It's just, it is still vexing when you see the wicked prosper. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a vexing thing. All right, any other kind of overall comments?
Well, I actually worked for a McDonald's back in high school, and so it was kind of fun to see the beginnings of a lot of the things that they still used when I was working at McDonald's in the 80s. The little dispensers for the ketchup and the mustard,
sure.
And, the 3 pickles, and all of those things that still, after that big time lapse from when this was started to when I was working there, that, those things were still in place. And so that was just kind of interesting for me to say, I've seen that thing. I don't know if they still use it now. And we just actually took a tour of a McDonald's with my little Cloverbud kids. And it's changed now. It's a little bit different than, when I was there. But I think that's just progress in technology and all that. So, but that was kind of fun for me.
Visiting your roots.
Saying, what?
All right. Well, let's have our break, and when we come back, we'll look more worldviewy about all these things.
Are you interested in Christian education? Would you like to learn how to be a Christian teacher or how to run your very own Christian school with success? The GCS Apprenticeship Program can help. Learn more on our website at gcsapprenticeship.com.
The Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network brings to you a complete lineup of podcasts where you will hear practical and tactical theology. Our desire is not simply that you consume our shows, but that you also live out your faith in every area of life. We can talk all day long about these things, but if we fail to put them into practice, then we fail as ambassadors of Jesus Christ, our King. Subscribe now to your favorite Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network shows, or you can subscribe to the Reconstructionist Radio Master Feed, where all of the content we produce, including the audiobooks and audio articles, will pop up as soon as they are available. And don't forget to visit ReconstructionistRadio.com to volunteer as a narrator or to partner with this ministry financially. May the Holy Spirit stir you into action for Christ and His kingdom.
And we're back, Worldview Media Podcast. As Joyce sips her drink from a McDonald's cup.
I didn't buy it. Somebody else bought it for me.
You don't need to be embarrassed.
You know,
Everybody has a McDonald's.
I know, but after seeing this movie, I was conflicted. I was like, oh my gosh.
It made you
made me think,
want to support McDonald's. Or
I don't know if I really care for this anymore. Which kind of surprised me. But I was just kind of like, can I get one Happy Meal Thursday?
Yeah, but I do think that one mitigating factor there, I'm with you. If I can avoid sending money to Ray Kroc, that'd be a good thing.
He's no longer with us.
He's no longer with us. He's gone to the alternate side. But,
he's gone to his reward.
Right. But the movie kind of also did point out that he realized that one key to their success was they were going to need to find hard-working kind of middle-class people who could afford to purchase the franchise and work their tails off. And
to succeed and have success. And that's the other part of it. But ultimately, he wasn't getting enough for himself.
Sure,
and so he had to kind of finagle, how can I get more than what I deserve?
He was kind of slimy.
In so many ways.
Right. Okay, let's talk about themes. And did you have anything in mind? Or
well, I think you had a good parallel with that other movie and with the characters of the main characters with Mr. Kroc and and that other guy, and just that they weren't satisfied with just doing well. They had to be in charge and control, and
their appetites were
insatiable. They just were never satisfied with anything. And when they saw something else, well, I have to acquire this. This has to be mine, and didn't care if that belonged to somebody else or was spoken for. You have no rights to these things. I think when he was talking with the brothers, and he was so frustrated with them because he'd say, hey, we need to do this and this will improve our profit, and they just say no. And it was driving him crazy. And then, his big deal was, well, contracts were made to be broken.
Right.
And I was just like, what?
Right. Well, I'm what they call a black coffee drinking, pipe hitting Calvinist and capitalist as well, and I'm all in favor of that entrepreneurial spirit. I think, frankly, the reason that the kingdom of God has been so stagnant in the United States is because Christians have not been trained or encouraged to function as entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And so we really need to get that back, that attitude. And so I don't begrudge Ray Kroc trying to maximize his profits, but it was the stuff you're talking about where he basically admitted, if his competitor was drowning, he'd shove a fire hose in his face
and help him.
Right.
Help him to his demise. Yeah.
And we can't be that. But I do think that, I'm not going to get mad at people for realizing if I eliminate this over here, I can maximize my profits, and that's just good business. And I'm all in favor of him doing well, and I'm not, I'm certainly in favor of everybody getting as rich as they can get while doing things ethically.
I guess for me that's my sticking point. I don't think he was ethical about the things he did.
He wasn't.
And he was above the law. He could do whatever he wanted to do.
He knew he was breaking the contract at one point, and he was just kind of upfront about it, that he felt like at the time he was breaking the contract, he was too powerful for anybody to do anything about it. He had enough accrued wealth that sue me, do whatever you want to. Right.
But, and so he was just really kind of underhanded in a lot of the things that he did. And so I think, be a business owner, do all these things, but, you have to have a standard which isn't your own.
Right.
order to do that in the best way possible.
So Ray Kroc turns out to be kind of an unsavory character.
Yeah.
I didn't hate him or anything. I just felt
Didn't
sorry
really like
for him. And
You felt sorry for him?
yeah, well,
Really?
just because his whole life was devoted to things that really weren't all that important.
They were important to him.
Yeah,
And
right.
that's why he was devoted to it.
So he was a bad guy, but there were a lot of bad characters in the movie. There was nobody that you could look at and just say, well, here's the one we're supposed to be rooting for. I guess the closest would be the McDonald brothers, but even they had some things they had some obvious flaws that contributed to bad situations. Now, in Ray Kroc's desire to take McDonald's nationwide and take over the world with it, I really kind of saw a parable of post-millennialism and dominion. I mean, he was taking dominion. He was just doing it in an ungodly, unlawful way.
Yeah.
But there's still something to be learned from his refusal to be defeated and his willingness to try out of the box things in order to advance the cause. If all that was put in service of Christ, that would be great. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was unethical.
Sure. And so, where I would say that Ray Kroc was kind of an example of what the church should do, only ethically, I felt like the McDonald brothers were more of an example of what the church does, and doesn't need to be continuing to do that. And what I mean is, and I especially think they're like amillennialists. The McDonald brothers were amillennial in function, because within the walls of their business, they were fantastic in terms of efficiency and
productivity,
right, quality control. They were great, and service at their window. They were great. They didn't go beyond their window.
People had to come to them.
Yeah, that's it. People had to come to them. And innovation and problem solving and inventiveness, they were great within the walls of their building.
Yeah.
But it did seem to me, their story was that as soon as they realized they were successful where they were, they on their own tried to franchise things. And they quickly got burned in that process. And so their response was to kind of retreat within the walls of their building and just focus on what they are doing there in that one location.
To do the best that they can where they're at.
Right. And to me, that was the whole modern church, really. That, and especially the amillennial brand of Reformed churches. Let's be great within the walls of the church and what we're doing here on a Sunday morning, and we'll get it all down and be very efficient with our hour-long service or whatever. But there's nothing going on outside. And once we get outside these walls, we're going to meet up with people who aren't as ethical as we are, and we're likely to get burned, and we've been burned before, and it's just a lot of hassle to have to deal with things outside these walls. And so let's just kind of circle the wagons and do what we do in here. And I thought that was a shame, because the whole thing about the McDonald brothers is that they proved to be resilient, kind of out-of-the-box thinkers, and, like I say, really overcoming obstacles and problem-solving. They were moving their building at one time, and they ran into a bridge they weren't going to be able to move past, and so they sawed their building in half.
Instead of purchasing a new building, they just said, let's move the one we have.
Right.
So, they were forward-thinking with a lot of things that...
Right, they were innovative. It's just that as soon as things got scary, suddenly they stopped innovating. And when they ran into problems on the outside, suddenly they stop being problem solvers. Let's just stay in our safe place and do good here.
So, should all business owners look at having branches of their business everywhere?
If God grants them that kind of growth, I think that's a worthy thing to look at. I don't believe there's anything morally wrong with having a family farm, that pretty much supports your family and you can live pretty well and all that. I don't think, like a family farm, how are you going to franchise that?
But anything else you
and I don't think you're obligated to buy up all the land you can possibly buy up. But I do think that entrepreneurial kind of expansive mindset is generally good for business. Generally.
Well, it just seems to me to think about that. It's going to take more time and more of your time away from other things. And again, what's your focus and why are you doing those things? So
right.
I don't necessarily see what they did as a horrible thing. They were happy.
Well, I think it did become bad once they signed a contract for the specific purpose of let's expand and do the franchise thing. Mm-hmm. Then for them to be afraid and to keep pulling back and to keep saying no to trying this or trying that, then I think that became a hindrance and actually was their end of the developing bad relationship between them and Ray Kroc. A lot of their reticence to move forward or to be innovators was really based on nothing. They just hated the thought of changing. And that wound up causing a lot of tension. And who knows, maybe if they had been a little bit less tight in that sort of thing, maybe the relationship would have progressed a little bit easier. And so,
with the way that Kroc was portrayed,
right, I wouldn't put it past him.
I don't think he would have been happy with anything other than what he wound up with.
Yeah, that's probably right. And then the other thing that I thought about...
But that is a really interesting comparison that you've made between the two views of how to expand.
or whether
not
to.
to.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you. And then the other character that I thought didn't help the situation was Ray's first wife. Mm-hmm. And again, it started out with me feeling very sympathetic toward her because Ray Kroc is this traveling salesman and
she's alone a lot.
Right, and apparently he's got a history of investing money in gimmicky schemes and she's just kind of had it up to here with this and at one point they get in an argument about it and you get the feeling it's something they probably argued about a lot and he's kind of like, well, if you'd only maybe support me a little bit. And her answer was that she had supported him by not leaving him all these years. And I thought that was kind of significant. Because I kind of felt for Ray Kroc in that moment that, yeah, support has to be something more than just I consent to remain with you. Which is kind of what her support seemed to be. And she was kind of playing a martyr at that point. Like she was doing something, she was really spending herself by supporting him in that way. When the truth of the matter is they're members of a country club and she likes to hobnob with a bunch of rich friends.
Yeah, she has a nice house. She's got nice clothes. She's got nice things. So.
It's not like she's sleeping in a box or something like that, waiting for her husband to come home.
But it doesn't seem like she's looking for anybody else either.
No, that's right. There was no indication that she was having...
She was at home doing whatever he did at home.
Which was more than you could say for him.
Yeah. Well, and I think for her too, the reputation of your husband being somebody that's like, oh, here's the latest thing. This is what you need. You got to have this. And then, well, okay, maybe not. But wait, what about this? Don't you think you need this? That oh, you've got a crazy man. That, so I think she probably did deal with some things that he probably didn't understand or realize, because it was never, oh, this didn't work, maybe this will work. And I don't think he realized what he had done to himself until he was trying to get money for this restaurant.
How he had destroyed his own reputation.
And people were like, don't I know you? And he's like, no, you don't know me. And he's like, wait, you came in here trying to sell me. And then somebody else, oh, this was what you tried to sell me. And they were never the same thing. So
Yeah, that's interesting. But I just point that out. But that was another character that I was initially sympathetic with.
And they didn't seem happy.
No, they never were.
They didn't seem happy with each other when they were together, when they were apart.
There was a fleeting moment when they were eating at the country club, and the crowd that they were with was kind of making fun of Ray and joking about him and
his crazy schemes.
Right, and she did kind of stand up for him then, and felt like in that moment maybe it was like a point of reconciliation. Maybe she really was on his side. And, of course, it didn't wind up playing out that way. And that was mostly his fault, though.
Well, and then, he did ask her for a divorce, and it was just, they're sitting down to eat, and he just says, I want a divorce, and that was...
Yeah, not a terribly emotional moment.
So it was really kind of weird. Of course, he didn't do that until he found something else that he liked better than what he had.
Right.
So, and I know what you're saying about, well, this was there, but it never went to this point where I thought it would go, and there wasn't a really good, solid ending, and it wasn't like a satisfying, here we go, this is right, and is that just life? It's a little based on a real life story, and that's just...
Yeah, it really does happen that way sometimes.
Sometimes you don't get that satisfying end.
Yeah, you don't see it with your eyes anyway a lot of the time. All right, you got anything else on this show? Did you have any other thematic thoughts? Or?
No. It was interesting. It was an interesting little...
Kind of eye-opening in terms of I had no idea.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, really fun. Kind of fun. I thought it was...
Well, I like the comparisons you were able to get out of it. I did not see those things. I just saw Batman.
You didn't think you didn't see the McDonald brothers and think, millennialism.
No. I don't know why not. I guess I was just not thinking.
Well, we'll learn you. All right. Well, we should get out of here then. Cats are crying and people are calling and it's crazy.
It's crazy.
All right. You want an instant milkshake or anything?
No. I'll take the old-fashioned.
That's so expensive. All right, y'all. Go out there and dominionize. Learn how to tell the story in every story. Amen.
Thank you for listening to the Worldview Media Podcast. Please visit reconstructionistradio.com to check out the other podcasts in our network and to download our free audiobooks.